Yo, yo, what's going on, me Caucus? Hope everybody is feeling good, feeling rested after the big convention. Uh, we had a pretty enormous success, sweeping all the seats on the LNC, uh, taking the Judicial Committee, getting the property rights back into the platform, getting a definition to aggression and property, getting secession back in the platform, which didn't get as much attention as I thought it was going to. But nonetheless, I think that's a huge one, especially moving forward for the messaging of the party. Getting rid of the woke language from 3.5, getting rid of the abortion plank was a huge one, very timely. So, congratulations to everybody on the team. Thank you to Jeff Douglas, to Angela McArdle, to Whitney Boatwright, Brody Elwood, Lainey Huston, David Hines, Luke Enzer, Aaron Harris, all the state team organizers, and this effort took hundreds of people to coordinate, hundreds of people across the country. There's about 260 organizers at the state level, organizing volunteers. There's all these volunteers, thousands of volunteers underneath them. It was just a massive effort, and of course, a special thank you and shout out to Dave Smith, Tom Woods, Maj Torre, and Scott Horton. We couldn't have gotten all the recruiting done if it wasn't for those guys and many others. So huge thank you from me and from the board at the Mises Caucus for all your help and all your support. So what I'm here to talk with you guys about tonight is I wanted to give a little bit of time after the convention, let everyone get rested, let everyone kind of recharge their batteries and kind of acclimate to the new LP and reorient themselves. So what I want to talk to you about is, I hear some stuff out there about, the Mises Caucus has already taken over the party. So, we don't need them anymore, right? Wrong. I would say we're needed more than ever moving forward to maintain the party on the trajectory that it's on and see it through to its conclusion. So some victories that have already happened, just from within the month that the convention has already taken place. The LP messaging is completely revolutionized. The first tweet brought a tear to my eye where, the official LP Twitter was saying this is now the home for the Ron Paul revolution. We're in the tradition of Mises and Rothbard. We thank the Mises Institute. We thank Jeff Dice. We thank Lou Rockwell. Just kind of giving that thanks and that recognition for the people that put us on the path, most of us on the path that we're on today. So that's great. I mean, they're quoting Hoppe to the chagrin of some people. They are unabashedly talking about ending public education. They're unabashedly talking about secession, which I think is going to be more and more important as we move forward. So the messaging has already exploded, and I cannot wait to see what the new membership figures are, because I'm willing to bet that we've had an explosion. Todd Hagopian, the treasurer of the party, has put out the first financial report, and lo and behold, we had a historic fundraising convention. I think they raised something like $500 or $500,000 gross or something like that, which they on net they started out the month negative $30,000 in debt, and now they're something like $208,000 as of the time of that report. Just incredible. But yeah, so things are already looking really good. We got the messaging on track. That's a big one. That's going to aid the recruitment. That's going to aid, the trust of the Libertarian Party from the Liberty movement, and get that Ron Paul revolution in, get that wider Liberty movement in, and actually represent them and give them something that they can bite into, that they can be proud of. So with that, I want to address, where do we go from here? Now that we are in this position, where do we go from here? Because there's going to have to be a lot of changes within the caucus. There's going to have to be a lot of changes that I personally make, and I'm very excited and ready to make them. We're already working on some stuff. But yeah, I hear some of you guys out there, this whole, what are we going to, we don't need the caucus now that the takeover's done. And that's just not true. The takeover was always phase one of a long-term project. We're talking about decentralization. There's not going to be any silver bullet here. There's not going to be, one election and we're just going to, save the country if we just win president or we just get on the debate stage. That's not how this is going to work. That's kind of been the track of the party up to the point that we took it over. We're looking at the long term. We're looking at building our foundation at the local level and decentralizing from there, building up into the state level. So that's going to be kind of the theme of what we're working towards with everything that we're doing now that the takeover is done. So I would say in order for us to understand where the Mises Caucus is going moving forward, it's going to be pretty important to understand where we came from and what we set out to do from the outset. Now, when we got started, it was August of 2017, so we're not even 5 years old yet. When we first started, what the point of this thing was to stop Bill Weld from becoming the presidential nominee in 2020. At that point, late 2017, going into 2018, the party was still buzzing off the 4.3 million votes that Gary Johnson had gotten for the party. And they were touting how much money they were able to raise because of the connections through Bill Weld. And, it was a real thing that Bill Weld could have became the nominee. It's kind of hard to imagine now because it's so different. But that really was the case in 2017. So that was first. We cannot allow Bill Weld to be the nominee and potentially even get on the debate stage and destroy the word libertarian to the general public from here on out. One of the bigger picture goals that we wanted to do was to kind of recreate the energy and the enthusiasm and the environment of the Ron Paul revolution, but do it in such a way that it doesn't end. Ron Paul is as awesome as he is one man, one campaign. And that will always end. That can't sustain forever. And as we all saw from 2013 up to 2000, to today, there's been a fracturing and kind of a dissipation of that revolution going into all kinds of different directions. And there was never any cohesion around a strategy for which us all to move forward with. And if we could recreate that in the guise of an institution or an organization, it could just snowball forever and ever and never actually have to end with one campaign. We can just keep it going. That's what we wanted to do. And in so doing that, we wanted to realign the Libertarian Party with its original intent of spreading the message of liberty and to get more people thinking about liberty, and that being the primary goal, not just votes for vote's sake, but changing people's minds and from that place of a new perspective, voting for libertarian candidates. Changing the culture. That's really what it's about, is changing the culture, injecting ourselves into the culture, changing the conversation, and again, changing the way people think, getting them on fire about the ideas, because it's great to get the votes, but who's going to be the candidates? Who's going to be the people door knocking? Who's going to be the people, working tables at the local fair? Who's going to be, helping the campaigns for all these candidates? It's going to be the people. It's going to be the core. It's going to be the people who are fired up about the ideas and really believe in it and want to do something with it. So that's what we have to find, the remnant. We have to find the remnant and bring them together and create a community out of that remnant. So we wanted to do that. We wanted to repair the relationships between the liberty movement and the Libertarian Party. We were coming out of a situation where the leadership of the National Party, was saying that Ron Paul was a Russian racist, that the Mises Institute was the preferred think tank of Nazis, and just all of this crap to purposely cut the Libertarian Party even further off from the liberty movement in an effort to take it to the progressive left for whatever reason. So we wanted to repair those relationships so that not only would the Libertarian Party be the political hub, which is kind of everyone's least favorite aspect of it, but the community hub, having the intellectuals that we all learn from and admire and learn from in the party and get their support. And what we wanted to do is actually have a Libertarian Party with a purpose. Right now the purpose has been, we all know the Prague tagline, right? Well, the political party exists to win elections, and it's just so hollow and uninspiring. There's no direction in that. There's no aim. It's just throw spaghetti at the wall, and we're going to run for every race. It doesn't matter. We're just content to get ballot access and maintain ballot access and kind of be that distant third option. But we wanted to come in with a purpose and have a long-term aim. And that has a lot to do with the organizational aspect of the caucus. I'll get to that in a little bit. But we wanted to have a Libertarian Party with an aim that is aimed at decentralization, aimed at nullification, aimed at city council, mayor, sheriff, judge, school board, attorney general, All of these kinds of races where if you win, you have a huge effect at affecting liberty in your community and building trust with your community. And I really think that we're not going to be able to have wide scale the conversations that we need to have with people until we start to pierce that partisan wall and get that trust. And we're going to get that trust by being the catalyst on issues or winning local level elections, because there's a lot of talk of culture, that politics is downstream from culture, and I believe that that's generally true. But it's also true that culture, as much as the left has taken over all of the institutions of the country, and trying to impose culture from the top down, that's not organic. That's not real. And you can see how that it's not real with how much effort they put into trying to propagandize, having all of the media stations have the same narrative, have Hollywood with the same narrative, have the social media algorithms to make us think that the same narrative is popular, or what is normal when it's not. So we have to pierce through all of that, and kind of use our very, very scarce resources effectively in a way that will actually minimize the state. And nullification is the tool to do that. And from 2018, I think we have done an absolutely amazing, or 2017 when we started, we've done an absolutely amazing job. We went from nothing, literally nothing, into but a Facebook group in late 2017 to being 22% of the convention in 2018. And we got, at that point, Alex Merced, we helped push him over to win for vice chair. We got Karen Ann to win her first run as secretary, and had some real wins that we can bite into. By the time 2020 came, we were 40% of the convention, and there was several other wins that we had gotten in the process, even though we didn't win the nomination for chair or for president. But I would say that we still got proof of concept through the Jacob Hornberger campaign. Kind of a unheralded thing with that campaign was the fact that he brought in about 1,200 members, Jacob Hornberger, in the primary. And he did that on about a $60,000 budget that he had raised and spent. You compare and contrast that with the Joe Jorgensen campaign that raised about $3 or $3.5 million and brought in about 3,000 members. And the proof of concept that we felt that we got with the Hornberger campaign was that if you get somebody that is respected and liked by the movement, that they can be used to kind of draw that movement in and explode the membership with people that ought to have already been here. And we did that in a much cheaper and more efficient manner than the Jorgensen campaign. We did achieve our goal of defeating Weld. And if you remember back to the 2020 campaign, the primary, we beat Weld before he ever even attempted. He went back to the GOP and failed there as well. And then they tried to bring out Lincoln Chafee, and they tried to dig up Judge Jim Gray. And we pushed all of that back. Justin Amash came in, and he was promised a home run, a slam dunk. This is going to be an easy nomination. Between that, the fact that it wasn't a slam dunk, the Mises Caucus held the line pretty hard with Jacob Hornberger, and polling showed that Amash would have won on maybe the fifth ballot. He ended up, and other factors, he ended up not running. So we were strong enough to achieve that. And, I know everyone kind of loves to hate on Jorgensen, and I'm fully aware of all of her flaws, but I still saw the Jorgensen campaign as a move in the right direction from the eyes of like a LP insider, in that, the problem with Joe Jorgensen in that campaign is that they were blue pilled. They bought into the mainstream narrative, and they tried to use that narrative to signal to people that they were safe and follow it up with the libertarian principle. But make no mistake, Joe Jorgensen is a plumb line libertarian, and we haven't had a plumb line libertarian in a very long time. So that signaled to me that we had at least taken the principle back, but we hadn't yet changed the culture of the party. And that's what this convention was all about in 2022, was changing the culture. That's why we wanted to make those platform changes. That's why we wanted to put secession back in. That's why we wanted to get rid of the woke language. And we've achieved that. So, now we have taken over the party completely. And, things are at a high right now. And what we've got to do is stay focused, not sit on our laurels, and double down on the real work now and fight the real enemies, which is the state and the cathedral and all of their goons in the media and everything. So with that, I just walked you through phase one, and I'm going to have a lot of information that I have to throw at you guys. I hope to get done here within a half hour or so, about what we're going to be doing moving forward. I hope I don't overwhelm you, but in general, So some things that we're working on right now, and by we, I mean the Mises Caucus board. Right now, we've never built an actual on paper official business plan for the caucus. That's something that we are now working on. And this is going to be part one of creating a roadmap / timeline of goals that we want to hit. And those two things together are going to form the basis of what we call development packages to basically work from that business plan, work from that roadmap, and create fundraising materials to start going out and doing big game hunting. Because we had that money bomb, we raised $50,000 over a weekend. We're making $16,500 a month, something like that. But really, we're just scratching the surface of what we're capable of and what's out there to get. And we have to this point never gone big game hunting. All of our money comes from small donors. There might be somebody who gives $5,000 here or there, but it's all small donors, which is great, because that means it's very grassroots, and that's what I would always maintain and keep this thing oriented towards, is the grassroots, the streets, the people, and not get overly corporate. Although we're going to have to corporatize somewhat as we move forward as a board. So right now, working on the business plan, we have a lot of administrative glut that we have to catch up on, that we push to the side, because we went completely for broke with Reno. We went headlong into Reno and basically pushed everything to the side. So part of that is that business plan, that roadmap. We're going to be implementing task management software that's already being built out. This is something that should help dramatically improve the productivity of both the board and all of our state organizers. The software is Basecamp, for those of you who are familiar with it. We're going to have basically task management software for our IT team and our marketing team and our board and all of the state organizers. And, that's going to help people create continuity as as organizers come and go, knowing what they have to do, knowing what's already been done, what's being worked on now, and basically generally keep people oriented towards the goals of being an organizer, the three-prong strategy that we talked about so much, and all of that. Right now, Lainey, our marketing director, is hard at work and has put together the groundwork for a comprehensive marketing strategy that's going to cover our social media, our video content, our emails, and orient everything towards that three-prong strategy. And overall, the big picture of what we're doing is scaling up that three-prong strategy. Just briefly, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about when I say the three-prong strategy, it's party organizing, which is basically the thing that led to the takeover. It's local level candidates and president for the messaging and recruiting effect, local level for the nullification and the practical electoral success, and then issue coalitions at the local level. So if you live in a blue town, let's get decriminalization going. If you live in a red town, let's get gun sanctuaries going. And we have our organizers armed with legislation for all of these things. So scaling up, especially those candidate efforts and those issue coalition efforts, is going to be the main theme of what we do moving forward. So the marketing strategy is going to be all about that. Again, sophisticating our fundraising and the materials that we use for fundraising. We haven't even had to this point the capability of texting every phone number that's in our database for marketing purposes. That's going to be something that changes as we bring on our CRM. And the CRM is something that we've been talking about for a long time. CRM is customer resource management software. It's basically a huge database that will allow our organizers to greatly increase their automation capabilities, greatly increase the tools at their disposal. They'll be able to email targeted groups or their entire state list from within that software. Eventually, they'll be able to target or text their whole state, text the whole state, or text a county, or text an individual from that software. They'll be able to see who our customers are on a state-by-state basis, who our donors are, and basically have maximum ability to organize the volunteers. And the CRM is something that we wanted to implement at the beginning of this year, but I personally kind of put the kibosh on that because I did not want to go into state convention season where we go, in red line on delegate allocation and delegate organization, and then also bring a new piece of software into our organizers with a learning curve and kind of have them manage both. So the good news is that the software is going to have more capabilities out of the box than it would have if we began at the end or at the beginning of the year. It did get pushed back though, but we're looking in the next month or so to be doing that. All of our teams are growing. So when I say teams, I'm talking about our IT team, our marketing team, our communications team, our candidates team, our events team, our national organizing team. All of this stuff is growing. I think Laney said she had something like 30 candidates, like 30 people that wanted to be involved in the marketing team. I know Whitney Boatwright, our candidates coordinator, she has about, I want to say like 10 people or so that are going to be helping her to interview candidates, get our questionnaire out to candidates, and interview them and kind of help us decide where we should be spending our money. We want to continue to scale up. We've been spending more money on candidates every single year since we founded the PAC in 2019. We spent $30,000 last year. We're hoping to spend 35 to 40 grand on candidates this year and kind of growing every year after that. We're going to be creating training materials. I mean, we already have some basic training materials, but creating video training for all of our organizers, video materials for how to do an onboarding, for how to do cold calls, all of this stuff. Helping people with signatures, creating call bombs and text bombs for people to get signatures. It's that time of the year right now. All of these things are kind of the general pipeline of what's happening right now. But to break it down even a little bit further, kind of on a team by team basis, what are we going to be doing? Well, you've got Jeff Douglas, who is the national coordinator for party organization. And, I think this has a lot to do, this team in particular has a lot to do to answer the question of like, well, why do we need the caucus? Okay, because basically people think, oh, well, we just took over the party, so we don't need the caucus anymore. But the issue with that is that we've already seen what happens when the party's democratic process is left to its own devices. It results in what we already had to take over. So we need to use our organizational infrastructure and our organizational apparatus nationwide to ensure that democratic process becomes predictable, so that this doesn't become a flash in the pan that lasts 2 years and we get new leadership down the line in 2 years, and then they start to take things in a completely other different direction and you have turnover and all of this stuff. We want to make that democratic process predictable so that we can stay 10 years, 20 years on the same trajectory of nullification and decentralization. And who knows, maybe by the end of that, we have 5,000 city councilors and mayors and or judges or all of this stuff where we're doing massive nullification efforts. And by that point, we should also have some state house reps or state house senator or state senators and doing wider scale nullification efforts and operating at that level. So that's a big one that we've already done and we're going to be honing in and moving forward with, is making the democratic process of the Libertarian Party predictable. Keep in mind, 2024 is going to be a presidential nomination year. There's going to be a lot of people that come out of the woodwork, and we've really knocked over a hornet's nest. And I think the days of the opposition being completely unorganized are over, or at the very least, we have to assume that is the case. So, making sure that we are that much more organized, that we maintain being the biggest recruiters to the Libertarian Party in the party. And again, making predictable that democratic process. That's a big part. It's not like we took every single state out there. We took a majority of them, but again, it wasn't a presidential year, so they didn't have their they didn't shift into sixth gear on the other side. And there's still states that we have had a failure to launch in, or we have underperformed in, or maybe, the organizing team had something happen in their personal life and they just couldn't do what they had to do. So Jeff is working very hard to ensure that we build more in more states and tighten our grip moving forward. And I can tell you that there's already been major developments in 2 key states. I won't name them and give the opposition anything to work with, but in 2 very key states, if I were to write out a roadmap for the opposition on how to beat us, are already off the table for them. And there's more to come. So we got to assume that the other side is going to try to use a presidential candidate, maybe an Amash or something like that, as a rallying point to counterstrike in 2024, and that they're going to try to raise money to that effect, and they're going to try to get organization and recruit to that effect. So we've got to be on our game moving forward with the party organization stuff. But what the party organization is here to do is, again, make that democratic process predictable. It's to be the biggest recruiters in the party. It's to promote a positive culture within the party. And that has been the thing that has been so toxic for so long, is that there was just an acceptance of corruption from the top of the party. The part and the leadership had basically created a very negative culture for years and years that had kind of manifested and worked its way through the entire party. So we have to now unwind and unravel that and generate a positive culture that is attractive to people, and not just kind of the book club thing that has been, that shows up every 4 years. This is a big part of the party organization and recruiting. We have to pick a presidential nominee. Everyone knows that Dave Smith keeps teasing this idea of running for president in 24. And, we need to have that organizational infrastructure to be there for him if and when he is to announce, to be there for Maj Toure for vice president if and when he announces. They're not going to just win out of the ether. We're going to have to put that together and throw our full support behind them, especially if the other side is getting around, say, a Justin Amash or something like that. By organizing in the party, we're protecting the values of the party. We're protecting the principle of the party. We're keeping the party honest and keeping it on its founding tradition from David Nolan and how the party used to be, that got lost somewhere along the way. So that's what everything that's going on with the party organization. That one's pretty well established. That team, it's established enough to where that team just generated the takeover. So kind of just maintaining, scaling, creating more training materials, all of that stuff. That's what's going to be going on with the party organizing team. With the candidate team, Whitney Boatwright is our candidate coordinator, and she has recruited about 10 volunteers to be a part of this team to help generate training programs for candidates, training candidates on, what their campaign team should look like, how to utilize data analytics for their race. They're going to be creating candidate support programs. Historically, we've kind of just identified candidates and threw some money at them and, send them on their way. But we have enough people now to where we're going to be able to sophisticate our support programs for those candidates, and not just send them money, but send them door knockers, send them, people to phone bank, help them with graphics on their website or for their campaign or whatever. So, not sending money, but also sending on the ground support and sending training. That's going to be how we scale up that candidate effort. And again, that's mayor, sheriff, school board, city council, mayor, attorney general, all that kind of stuff, judge. That's where we're going to show people what libertarianism is and who libertarians are, is by getting in these positions that we actually have a shot at and making right on what we promised to do. Introduce nullification legislation, confer with the people in that local culture and see what they want that's freedom oriented and how we can deliver on that. That's going to be of the utmost importance. So then that brings us to the issue team, the issue coalition team. And that's going to be headed up by me. I'm going to be shifting roles within the caucus. To this point, I've kind of been a little bit of a jack of all trades. I've kind of been all over the place. If I had to describe myself as anything up to this point, it's kind of a co-general with Jeff Douglas in the party organizing sphere, along with a whole bunch of other stuff, kind of lead strategist. And I still want to be the lead strategist, but there's nobody on our team who is working the issue coalitions from the top. And that's going to be me. And I think I kind of have to be the one that does this, because I think a key part of this job is going to be going out to issue organizations, forming relationships with their leadership, getting their confidence that we are serious. And from that place of confidence and trust with those organizations, have them tell me where the hotspots are for gun sanctuaries or weed decriminalization or, tax efforts or whatever it might be, and sell them on the fact that, hey, we have an organizational infrastructure around the entire country that just took over the third largest party in the country. And so we want to aim that at the same things that you are aimed at, and get people on those issues. And then that way we can help them push that over the top, generate that trust, generate that real world gains and liberty. And I also think that by doing this, we might, for one of the first times, have a comparative advantage that we can offer to these organizations as libertarians. we have access to these volunteers that would be willing to do this work when they don't. The GOA, I'm sure there's libertarians who are on their mailing list, but it's going to be a lot of GOP people, or maybe independents, or just people who, even Democrats who are pro-gun. But it's not a concentration of libertarians like we have, meaning we can have a fresh injection of volunteers for these issues that they can't access. So we actually are a value add in this sense. And that's something that I really want to push forward. And, I can tell you that my personal efforts, I got some cool stuff going on with psychedelics here in my state. A Republican congresswoman put forward a bill to study psilocybin. And that happened right around, not long after I had to sit down with my city councilor who helped me with weed decrim in Norristown. And I had another sit down with him and, talked about the efficacy of psychedelics within mental health care and all of these kind of things. And I, to my shock, got his support. And he's willing to, introduce this, to talk to the city council about this. I have one of the head clinical research scientists from Johns Hopkins University who's willing to zoom in to our city council and, speak to the science of all of this. And that's an issue that I definitely want to push from the top, build relationships with the donor base for that issue, the donor base for the gun issue, and funnel that into our volunteers and get those efforts going. And once I form those relationships, then again, we're going to be forming door knocking campaigns for ballot initiatives, or training people on how to do local level lobbying, if you don't have ballot initiatives in your states. And that's kind of the whole deal with issues, is forming those relationships, getting intel on where the hotspots for those issues are, and then organizing people around them. And then finally, the last team that we're going to be kind of scaling up, and this would constitute essentially a fourth prong of our strategy, is events and education. We have to replace Angela McArdle on our board because she is now the chair of the national party. We haven't replaced her yet, but we are fielding candidates. We're having conversations. And the person that we want to replace Angela, we want to fill the role of our events coordinator. And basically that would mean three things for their job. One, they would be handling logistics for any events that we put on. So they would be dealing with the hotel, they would be dealing with the speakers, with the equipment that might be needed, all of that kind of stuff. They would be keeping an eye out for events that we should be going to and tabling as a caucus. So we go to Freedom Fest, we go to Students for Liberty's event. We've been to YALCon, but like, for example, earlier this year, we missed the Bitcoin conference, just flew under the radar. We can't be missing opportunities like that. So we're going to have somebody who is dedicated to keeping an eye out on good events for us to be going to. And then the third part of that events coordinator job that I'm really excited about, that's unique, is there is a lot of artistic talent inside the caucus. There's a lot of people who are in bands, or maybe they're comedians, or stuff like that. And we've already started working on a document that will serve as a database for who all of these people are, what their bands are, how we can see what gigs they've got going on, and basically regionally promote these efforts, these comedy shows, or these concerts, or whatever that people from within our own community are putting on, and encourage our people to go out and support them, or go out and enjoy their comedy. And the whole point is to get people together in real life more, and culture build, and strengthen those bonds, strengthen those relationships, because that seems to be the thing that really drives forward people doing the work and enjoying the work, and it not just being like complete drudgery. And so to this end, I said it's events and education, and we have two educational efforts that we want to start pushing forward, which is the Take Human Action Tour. Some of you might remember that we kind of had a pilot program for this last year down in Virginia near George Mason University. We brought out Tom Woods and Michael Bolden from the 10th Amendment Center, and Maj Toure and Daniel McAdams from the Ron Paul Institute. And the basic idea is that we put the stars of our movement in college campuses, use student groups to turn people out and speak to them about issues that are both important to us, but also speak to our strategy. So can we get Jeff Deist or Patrick Newman or somebody to come and talk to the students about Austrian economics, or get a Scott Horton to talk about foreign policy, or a Michael Bolden to talk about nullification, or a Tom Woods about secession, and use that to educate these kids, but then bring them into our community where they can explore these ideas on their own terms and have a lot of fun doing it. that is something that I really want to, in the coming years, especially scale up and do as much of as possible. And then the other thing that we're going to be moving forward is, and I dipped my toe in this, but I needed to find somebody to manage this effort for me, is getting consistent with our Ask an Austrian podcast project. And that is exactly what it sounds like. It's getting questions from you guys, filling out a form to ask your questions about economics or the Austrian school, or, what's going on in the economy today and how do you explain this or that, and getting associated scholars or fellows from the Mises Institute to come on, take those questions and field them in a regular podcast. And, we'll mix it up and do some foreign policy podcasts in there as well. But again, this is all in an effort to expand kind of our educational basis right there, along with the political basis and the community basis. And I think if you put these three things together, you're going to have the maximum, the maximally efficient result that will build a community to last in the long term. So that's kind of the roadmap of everything. That's, all the prongs. The theme is scale up and sophisticate, get better with fundraising, get better with candidate support, get better with issues, get better with events, and scale all of this up, and let that serve as the kind of the thing that will fill the void for the takeover as a call to action as we build towards a hopefully Dave Smith Maj Toure campaign in 24. And by the time that happens, if we implement this software, if we implement these taxes, we get success in these other areas, we are going to be a well-oiled machine by the time that campaign rolls around. We're going to steamroll any competition, and we're going to do something the likes of which hasn't been seen since the Ron Paul days, and we're going to reach millions and millions of people. That is the big goal here. And then from there, it all starts over. If we reach millions and millions of people and you have tens or even hundreds of thousands of them pour into the party, we funnel them down into local level elections, we train them, we get them ready. And then who knows how many people could be working nullification efforts, whether that be candidates or issues across the entire country. And it just keeps scaling and exploding. And again, I'll make the point that culture emerges from the bottom up organically, not from the top down. So by working that culture, that's how we're going to build the trust. And it's a long-term game, but I think it's the only realistic path forward that we have. So I will, with that, I know I probably talked kind of fast. I kind of hate doing these by myself live streams, believe it or not. I'm still getting used to doing this sort of thing. So I'll take a look in the chat here and see if we got a couple questions. Yeah, ask some questions in the chat. But again, I really thank all you guys for your support. And while I'm looking, I will say that if you like what I'm saying, go to takehumanaction.com and at least fill out the form to join our email list, which will route you to our state level organizers to get involved in this community. Or if you got more money than you've got time, you can, from takehumanaction.com, become a donor. Especially a monthly donor helps us to, budget and project. So let's see. What about counterintelligence? I'm not sure what you mean. I think DC is off the table, if that's what you mean. I think we need to let Babylon burn to the ground and not worry about it too much beyond messaging is my frank answer. Bear with me. So David Dole, can we get grassroots 101 training for volunteers with no campaign or affiliate experience? Yes, this is something that we're going to be doing moving forward. Is we have some written materials like slideshows that are available to all of our organizers. But what we want to do is create video trainings for all of these different things, from campaign, like how to run a campaign, how to fundraise, how to door knock, how to do onboarding, all of this stuff. Because what happens is we have these written materials, but we end up, and when we don't have a video walking through an onboarding of, say, a new organizer, Jeff just repeatedly onboards new organizers over and over and over again. And it's very, very time intensive. And so we can simplify that process by having a video that does it once and is available for everybody. And then we can kind of fill in the cracks with one-on-one meetings or, Zoom meetings with whoever might need it instead of just doing it over and over again. Why is Andrew Yang speaking at Freedom Fest this year? I don't know, and I don't know why they banned some documentaries that were supposed to be on there too with Jason Rink, who has been in the movement for about 14 years or more. They banned his documentaries. I think one was about how canceled Nick Fuentes is, and I forget what the other one is, but they canceled both of his documentaries. So a couple of questionable things going on there. Let's see. Yeah, local gun clubs is a good place to start. See, stuff like this is what's got to be part of the training. You know, when you're working with volunteers, you gotta make things as easy as possible for people. And there's some very basic ideas that can be institutionalized and pushed forward. Like, so for example, if you're doing issue coalition work, and I'm going to start doing this, I'm going to be attending Democrat meetings because my town is highly Democrat. Am I joining the Democrat Party? No, I'm going to go there with my Mises Institute pin. I'm going to tell everybody I'm a libertarian, but I'm going to more or less tell them that I'm more serious about whatever the issue is than they are, because that's why I'm here crossing the aisle. But stuff like that, you kind of got to get out of your comfort zone, go and meet some strangers, make some friends, and build those relationships. Again, it's not a silver bullet. It's not going to be something that happens overnight. Relationship building takes work. But that is ultimately what we're going to have to do, is build relationships with people who are not libertarians, accept that they're not libertarians, and be better on the issues that they are decent at, and get them going and build that trust. National Mises Caucus meetup. So my hope is that the Take Human Action tours serve this purpose. Let's say we have 3 to 6 events a year where we got Tom Woods and Jeff Dice. These guys haven't signed on, so I'm just throwing names. But Tom Woods and Jeff Dice and Maj Toure and Michael Bolden and all this. I mean, that's an event. And people should travel to those. And I kind of want those events to serve that function. So yeah, any plans for representation at HotepCon? I will tell you that I've had some phone calls with Hotep. My plan is to get a table at HotepCon. I won't say who because it hasn't happened yet, but Hotep asked me to help him get a speaker at HotepCon, and I'm working on that. And Solutionary Summit, I mean, Maj is my brother, man. I'll do anything. I'll support pretty much anything that guy does. And we were a sponsor of the Solutionary Summit last year. It was a great event. Great networking opportunities to just a different crowd. And it was a lot of fun. So yeah, I would absolutely love to go back to the Solutionary Summit. Do I think it would be more easier or more difficult to coalition with pro-life groups now that Roe is dead? I do. I do. And more, even, I don't want to say more importantly than Roe is dead. That's pretty monumentally insane. But now that the party isn't explicitly against pro-lifers, I think that's going to be a big avenue for us to kind of coalition with pro-life groups, or to get pro-life libertarians, because there's a lot of pro-life libertarians out here who have been pushed to the side. And I mean, I just did an interview today with the Libertarian Christian Institute. I've been looking at comments for different articles and different videos, and it seems like that the signal was in fact sent that we want pro-life people just as much as we want pro-choice people in here. And so yeah, I think that avenue is definitely opened up. Yeah, more easier. I'm freestyling. I'm from the streets. Sorry. All right, let's see. I'll be on for a couple more minutes, so throw your questions in the chat, and I'll get to a few. I'm going to scroll up here. Okay, here's one. Can we implement more tickers / money bomb type things so the public / members can track progress? It's fun and inspires people to help the cause when we can see tangible numbers increasing towards various goals, etc. Yeah, that's definitely something that we want to do more of. We don't want to wear it out. If we're every month or so saying, "Oh, we need to raise $50,000," I think we're going to kind of run the well dry. But yeah, the money bomb is going to be more for specific things. So, like, let's say, hey, we want to raise $60,000 to do the first 3 Take Human Action Tours events, and we've got, we have 20,000 ready to go for it. Can we raise the other 40? Specific projects are going to be the kind of thing that we use those money bombs for moving forward, and that can all be funded through the Super PAC, which has no limits. So that's going to make that a lot easier. And that ticker that we use is already being upgraded, and I think you're going to see it someplace, or I think you're going to see it other places than just the caucus using that and using that model. So which groups do you plan on trying to build coalitions with? Tax groups, gun groups, weed and psychedelics groups, homeschooling groups, basically anything that's in the mix right now. And I really think right now, guns and education, so like homeschooling groups, I think are going to be the big ones to kind of go and find the leaders of and coalition with. And we have something that we can offer. We have not the caucus per se, but we as libertarians, we have the Ron Paul homeschool curriculum that we can offer. And it's very cheap, and it's an alternative, and it's all built around making your kids self-taught. So I mean, really, we want to do it with whoever we can, but those are the ones that I personally am going to be focusing on: guns, education, and drug war stuff. So what should some of the smaller group size states really be focusing on moving forward? So with our organizers, we have a term that we use called maintenance level. And that's a term that we use for, if you're a state organizing team and you have 300 emails, you have 300 contacts, before you can really do anything, that pile of emails needs to be boiled down into a volunteer list. So I would say in states that haven't really gotten off the ground, focus very, very hard on recruitment and onboarding, because in a sense, you kind of can't really do anything until you have that volunteer list. When you have a volunteer list, with the way our sheets and everything works, if you have somebody on the volunteer list, that means you have their name, their email, their phone number, and what county they're in at least. And until you have that, you can't really aim. So if you have a contact list that of let's say 80 volunteers in your state, well, then you could say, oh, okay, there's 6 people in this county that doesn't have an affiliated Libertarian Party affiliate, and or, oh, hey, Joe Smith is running for city council in Randomsburg, and we have 8 people in that county. We need to route those people towards that. Or, hey, there's 7 people in the reddest county in the state. They should be working on gun sanctuaries in that county. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So you need to build up your volunteer list first and foremost before you can kind of even know what you're capable of. Oh, yes. You know what? You are right, Matt. Bitcoin groups absolutely do need to be a priority, and I missed that. You're totally right on that. And I know there's some Bitcoin groups. So with Bitcoin groups, one piece of advice there: Meetup.com still exists, and there is Bitcoin groups out there. There's Jordan Peterson groups out there. There's groups out there for the Joe Rogan podcast. There's all kinds of meetup groups out there that might not be libertarian per se, although the Bitcoin ones most likely are. But are ripe, and that is a tool that we should totally be utilizing. All right, I think I'll do one more question. If I see it, bear with me. Well, I appreciate that, Dying Empire. We've been getting a lot of these kind of comments and emails and stuff like that. I really appreciate it. That's exactly what we were going for. So thank you. Sorry, I'm looking. Anybody got one last question? So I'll just use this and make a comment on this. Mark Moss and George Scammon are YouTube influencers that would be very sympathetic to our cause. And this is another like database that we need to make. There is so many podcasters out there. Like I have no idea who Mark Moss or George Gammon are, but there's so many podcasters out there that have been kind of red pilled by the lockdowns and red pilled by the COVID regime, that are now looking at, and taking the issue of liberty seriously at the very, very least on their terms. And to use a Donald Rumsfeld line, there's unknowns out there. Like a couple weeks ago, Maj Toure just did a podcast with a guy that I had never heard. I don't even remember his name, but he's some black fitness dude. I never heard of him, but then I go on his YouTube channel. He's got like 1.5 million subscribers, and it's like, how many channels are out there like that? Like how many of these little pockets of 1 million here, 2 million there, are actually out there, that if we kind of build that database and have a focused marketing effort of like going to them and seeing how we can gain their interest, what kind of effect that would be. And I guess that'll bring me on another rant, because I almost consider this part of issue coalitions, but that's exactly something that we want to do is, go to, if you got homeschool groups, for example, or like really pissed off moms because their schools are trying to force mask their kids and all of this stuff, they might not be libertarian yet on their own. So what we want to do is we want to go to those people and basically say, listen, here's the deal. We need to stay who we are as libertarians, but we also care a lot about you and your audience and this issue. So what can we do where we get to stay who we are as libertarians, but we also get to provide value to you, or provide a platform to you and your audience to do something about this issue and bring them in? Because somebody just asked in the chat. Here we go. This will be the last question then. So we form relationships with these influencers along a variety of issues, and then we basically ask them, what do you want out of us? We just need to be able to stay who we are as libertarians. That's a baseline. We have to stay who we are as libertarians, but we also have to provide value to you. So what can we do to provide value to you, to provide a platform for you, to where we're both moving forward together on this issue? And as long as we can stay who we are and provide value to them, that's the basic framework. And you do this along a multitude of demographics and influencers and issue groups. And collectively, you should have a pretty strong funnel down into the party, in addition to, because keep in mind, there's millions of libertarians out there, and the party historically has sucked at organizing them or motivating them. So you kind of hit both of these avenues. You start getting the Joe Rogan audience in, and then all the innumerable number of random podcasts out there that might have 1.5 million or 2 million or 800,000 subscribers, and you start funneling all of that in. And as the inflation gets more out of control, as the excuses for the inflation gets more out of control, what we have to say is relevant, and we're the only people with answers to a lot of the questions that plague society at the moment. So if we can actually get platformed and legitimized by those platforms, I think the sky's the limit on what we're going to be able to do as a party. So with that, I really appreciate it, guys. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your support. Again, if you're not already connected to us, go to takehumanaction.com, join the mailing list. You can go to misesmerch.com. We have a whole bunch of shirts and hoodies and one baby onesies, hats, all kinds of stuff. You can support us in any number of ways, become a donor, become a customer. But really, if you're not on that email list, join the email list and let's pull you into this community. And even if you hate voting and you hate politics, you're going to have fun in the community, and that's going to get you involved in the long run anyway. So thanks again, guys. Take human action. I'll see you later.